You've been gone. You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong. You are always welcome home, welcome home. You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong.
I founded the Heritage and Cultural Society of Africa, HACSA Foundation, in November 2016 to preserve, promote, and celebrate African heritage and culture, and link the diaspora and Africa enthusiasts to the African continent. As ambassador I founded the Heritage and Cultural Society of Francophonie and HACSA Foundation. I saw first in November 2016 to preserve heritage and culture and celebrate African heritage and culture. I also realized the unique position Ghana holds to the African continent of both world history and African diaspora. I founded the Heritage and Cultural Society of Francophonie and HACSA Foundation. I saw first in November 2016 to preserve heritage and culture, which then celebrate African heritage and culture, and the first country to gain the unique position after successful struggle to the African invasion of both world colonialism and African diaspora. The Heritage and Cultural Society of Francophonie. The stories of burning inside the to preserve heritage and culture, which then celebrate African heritage at HACSA, and the first country to gain the unique position after successful hence the Sankofa invasion of both world colonialism and African diaspora. The Heritage and Cultural to learn from the stories of burning inside to preserve heritage and culture, which then celebrate at HACSA, and the first country to gain the unique position after successful hence the Sankofa invasion.
The HACSA Sankofa network encourages members to actively support the important work we do and create supportive personal and professional self-development. The HACSA Sankofa network
Our activities and
encourages
projects
members
include
to
the
actively
HACSA
support
Sankofa
the important work we do and create supportive personal and professional self-development. The HACSA Sankofa network
activities and
encourages
projects
members
include
to
the
actively
HACSA
support
Sankofa
the important work we do and create supportive personal and professional self-development.
virtual heritage tours with 20
The HACSA
exhibits
Sankofa
on the
network
Our activities and
encourages
projects
members
include
to
the
actively
HACSA, where you can
support
go
the
and learn
important
about
work
the
we
history
do
of the
and create
transatlantic slave
supportive
trade,
personal and
colonialism,
professional
and Ghana's
self-development.
independence struggle, which changed virtual heritage tours.
Before we begin, can we ask everyone that's in the hallway to step inside as we progress through our sessions today? Also, I think we have a couple more people in the hallway, so GT, if you could direct people inside, that'd be great. And also Sophie.
You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong. You are always welcome home, welcome
I founded the Heritage and Cultural Society of Africa, HACSA Foundation, in November 2016 to preserve, promote, and celebrate African heritage and culture, and link the diaspora and Africa enthusiasts to the African continent. As ambassador to France, Portugal, La Francophonie, and UNESCO, I saw firsthand how countries used their heritage and culture to drive socioeconomic development. I also realized the unique position Ghana holds as the guardian of both world history and African diaspora history and heritage. The paradox of being the first African country settled by Europeans in search of gold, which then led to the transatlantic slave trade, and the first country to gain their independence after a successful struggle for emancipation from colonialism under the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president. The stories buried in the sites and fabric of Ghana and the African continent need to be told. At HACSA, we believe the past holds the key to the future, hence the Sankofa bird in our logo, an Adinkra symbol that advises us to learn from the past to progress into the future.
The past, present, and future frame of 4 programmatic areas at the HACSA Foundation. These are preserving, promoting, and celebrating African heritage and culture, highlighting and supporting talent and creativity in African and diaspora communities, empowering women and girls, and developing youth leadership. We work through advocacy, education, innovation, and collaboration to achieve our goals and to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging around the world, environmental sustainability, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The HACSA Sankofa network encourages members to actively support the important work we do and create supportive personal and professional self-development.
Our activities and projects include the HACSA Sankofa virtual heritage tours with 20 exhibits on the Google Arts and Culture platform, where you can go and learn about the history of the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, and Ghana's independence struggle, which changed the future of the African continent. Our Sankofa Heritage Experience is an in-person, immersive educational experience where we take visitors to Ghana on our own specially curated heritage tours. Hundreds of visitors to Ghana have participated in this experience. We regularly hold educational and cultural activities and have had over 2,000 attendees at our webinars, events, and HACSA summits. Our activities engage a diverse group of opinion leaders and influencers around the world who have a shared vision of innovation and progress for Africa. We organize exhibitions, music festivals, fashion shows, African product and innovation fairs and expos, book signings, film screenings, concerts, seminars, and virtual town hall discussions. HACSA has been developing leadership in the youth since its inception. The Sankofa Young Leaders Fellowship is a leadership development and Africa Immersion initiative for high school and college students from around the world. This program helps them to develop cultural competency and career and social networks in Africa and among the African diaspora.
You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back where you really belong.
Our work is made possible through partnerships and sponsorships with government institutions, the private sector, international organizations, and NGOs, and through the support and generosity of individuals like you. To fund, sponsor, or donate in support of the important work we do and or to join the HACSA Sankofa network, please visit our website at www.thehaxa.org. HACSA welcomes you to Africa and invites you to be part of the HACSA family.
You've been gone, it's an empty home. Come on back.
Now, before we have a call to prayer, I will actually have a call for participation from the crowd. That participation would look like everyone moving up to the front. So if we could have people fill out the first 3 to 4 rows, that would be very appreciated. Come on, we don't bite. Thank you. Come on. We are in for a treat, a very good word, and we want to make sure our ears are close to embrace those sonic sounds. So let's do it. Thank you, thank you. That's nice. It's like when a Ghanaian father sees you finally get a haircut after a while. We look professional. Okay, now I would ask everyone to bow their heads in prayer as we take it to the Lord. Dear God, we thank you for the blessing that is this moment. We ask as we prepare to begin the Sankofa Summit, that you guide our minds, ears, and hearts to the messages and work that you have in store for us all. We ask that you bless the attendees, planners, speakers, and allow our spirit to be forever transformed through the value of service, community, and goodwill. We thank you for bringing all of us here today to this place and forever in your grace. And we pray this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, honored guests, and dignitaries. My name is Wilson Darko. I'm from the Bronx, New York. I always try to shout that out. And also a son of Ghana, West Africa. I would like to thank our amazing guests from all over the world. We have people from Ghana, we have people from the UK, France, and the West Coast, the East Coast, you know, that's my hometown, right? And people from just all different corners of the world to engage in what we've brought today, which is the HACSA Sankofa Summit. Let's get a round of applause. So this year's summit is intended to accomplish two primary themes, or two values. Those are inspiring the youth and healing the communities. The intention of all of the sessions that you will participate in today is to empower those values. So when I say open your ears, your mind, and your hearts, those are the things that I would ask you to kind of focus on, to lean into, and be empowered and embraced during this time. I have the honored distinction to celebrate our founder of HACSA, who has done incredible, amazing work. She is Ambassador Johanna Svaneker. Johanna is the founder, president, and CEO of the Heritage and Cultural Society of Africa Foundation. So in case you didn't know what HACSA stands for, if you don't know, now you know. She is Ghana's recent past ambassador to France and Portugal and the permanent delegate to UNESCO and La Francophonie. During her tour of duty in Paris, she initiated Ghana's membership in the OECD Development Center, where she represented Ghana in the governing board. She is a lawyer by profession and has served as a professor as well, teaching at Oxford and the University of Ghana, Legon. Ambassador Svaneker holds both a bachelor's and master's degree in law from the London School of Economics, a master's in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School, and a master's in political science and international relations research from the University of Oxford. She was also a Fulbright Scholar during her time at Harvard University and is the author of several publications, including Women's Rights and the Law in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Svaneker. And I'm back. But again, in case I haven't shouted the audience out enough, it is really exciting to see people from all walks of life, all cultures, all demographics to engage in this conversation. But before we can engage in that conversation, we have to welcome Ambassador Svaneker.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, good morning. We've just had word that His Royal Majesty Ni Noche Note Owo the Fourth has arrived. So we're trying to see if we can get him into the room before I start. So Angel is going to go help with that, but I'm going to start and hopefully he will eventually make it here. All royal protocols observed. Nime, Name, Nananum, patrons, sponsors, partners, HACSA Sankofa members, faculty, students, esteemed speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the HACSA Sankofa Summit 2024. First business of the day, I would like to hold a minute of silence for Dikembe Mutombo, who was a keynote speaker at the HACSA Sankofa Summit 2021. For Ambassador Henri Lopez, the former Prime Minister of Congo-Brazzaville, one of HACSA's first honorary patrons, and Inez Long of the Opportunity Finance Network, who spoke at the HACSA Summit last year, and all those who have departed this earth since our last summit. Please rise for a minute of silence. Thank you. HACSA has held 6 summits since 2017, and some of you were here at the first one, like Fred Swanica. I see you, you were there. Amanda is not here, but hopefully she'll participate at some stage. All of them were in Ghana, so we are more than proud to bring the first HACSA summit outside Ghana to New York City. Yes, today is a milestone for HACSA as we bring Africa to the diaspora and we bring Africa to America. All HACSA summits are a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They bring together a bunch of special people from all over the African diaspora with one thing in mind. So what is that thing? Do you know why you're here today? Some of you just recently heard of HACSA, like yesterday or even today. So you may not even know why you're here. You're here today because of Sankofa. What does Sankofa mean? Sankofa is an Adinkra symbol, which you'll find in the center of the HACSA logo, of a symbolic bird leaning backwards to fetch an egg. Sankofa means go back and get what you have left behind. Go back and get something important, something special, something precious that belongs to you, something that will enrich your life, something you need to move forward. The significance of the history and legacy of the calamitous transatlantic slave trade is that it is global history and relevant to events playing out in the world today. The transatlantic slave trade and colonialism are not African history or diaspora history. They are historic world events. Ships from Europe sailed to Africa and transported humans in a brutal and savage way to the Americas and to the Caribbean. Europeans then created colonies around the world and transported both Europeans and Asians to Africa to settle during the colonial period. So clearly, this is not just African history, this is world history. This legacy persists today and defines global affairs. On the coast of Ghana, you can find the remains of 28 forts and castles associated with the transatlantic slave trade. These are listed as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So it's imperative that we address this past, heal from it, and inspire the youth to build a brighter future. Therefore, Sankofa is also an invitation to all of you, all the people, all over the world. and particularly Africans in the diaspora, to go back home to the continent, to learn about and from the past. The Sankofa Summit and Heritage Experience, organized by HACSA, curates such an Africa immersive experience. In 2026, the HACSA Foundation will be 10 years old, and we invite you all to Ghana for our 10th anniversary summit, beginning on July 26th, 2026. But today in New York, we are here to celebrate the resilience and tenacity of the African diaspora. And even as we aspire towards a better future, I say the best is here today. This summit celebrates excellence in our communities, the brightest, the best. That is what we have gathered right here for today. So as we go into our panel discussions with all these brilliant minds, I wish to submit that it's urgent that we define for ourselves what development means for Africa and Africans in the diaspora. Whose agenda is being served by persistently describing Africa as poor, sick, and corrupt? That is not the only thing happening in Africa today. And it never has been. I grew up in Africa. Use a local turn of phrase, that is not the only thing going down in Africa. As the pendulum shifts and Africa becomes the youngest and most populous continent, how do we in Africa want to define development and progress? Are we going to force our populations to live in squalor or little boxes in congested cities? No offense to New York. Or are we going to protect our rich land, countryside, and rural areas where life is simple, sustainable, and not wasteful? Are we going to preserve our mountains, our lakes, our rivers and seas, and the positive aspects of our culture? Are we allowed to turn our backs on wastefulness, exploitation, and destruction of our natural habitat? It is up to us to build the future we want. Nurturing and passing on to the next generation important communal values which help to preserve our environment. So let's use this forum to empower each other to define our own success and create the space to succeed on our own terms. Let's use this opportunity to support HACSA in its important work of advocacy, education, innovation, and collaboration for a better future for all. So, HACSA had this big, bold, ambitious plan to have its Sankofa Summit in New York City. The Big Apple, the financial center of the world, the melting pot of the African diaspora. And here we are today. I'd like to thank Adjoa Andor and Jimmy Akimbola, our celebrity guests who will be having a fireside chat later on today, for being here today against all odds. Adjoa is filming, she's in the middle of filming Bridgerton, and she's taken time off to be with us. Our hosts, Columbia University Teachers College, represented here today by Miss Yolanda Seeley Ruiz. Thank you so much. And Mr. Angel Acosta, who you've seen very busy all over the place, making sure that everything goes right, of the Acosta Institute. UNESCO for lending us its patronage, our planning committee, our sponsors, Fidelity Bank, Sand Technologies, Savani Group, and CBG, our partners, donors, speakers, volunteers, and everyone who has contributed and worked so hard to make the summit possible. I particularly want to thank Yawa Samoa, the chair of our US Advisory Board, for being the backbone of our fundraising activities and efforts for our charity gala, which happens tomorrow evening. So if you don't have your ticket, please go on our website and get a ticket for the gala of a lifetime. Angel Acosta for securing this venue and logistics and making sure that our conference runs smoothly. My husband, Thomas Savanik here today, and my family, who consistently support HACSA in so many uncountable ways. Our staff in Ghana, who sadly cannot be here today, but who have been working tirelessly behind the scenes. And last, but not the least, someone who embodies the hope that we have in the youth and the future. The amazing, incomparable Laverne Naode Clark. Please come, Laverne. The amazing and incomparable Naode Clark. Stay here. Stay here, stay here, stay here. Thank you. Thank you so much for coordinating this conference with such style. Thank you, everyone, for coming to support us. Thank you.
Please rise. Announcing we are thankful to be in the presence and to have joining us His Royal Majesty Nochi Ne Noti Owu IV, the current installed Osu Manchi and President of the Osu Stool Council. Let's give him a round of applause. You may be seated. So next on our agenda, because we need to move things along and he has places to be, we are excited to announce one of our keynotes, who was briefly referenced, Fred Swaniker. Let's give him a round of applause. Before Fred speaks, I'd like to give him a brief introduction. Fred is a serial entrepreneur from Ghana, and he is a leadership development expert on a mission to help the world's extraordinary talent fulfill its potential. Fred has too many businesses to name in one session, but he has done really dynamic work related to leadership, both on the continent and across the globe. So we are really excited to have an amazing speaker join us. And as I said, I'll be brief because Fred has places to go and people to see. So we are excited to welcome him.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, all royal protocols observed. It's a pleasure to be here today, and congratulations, Ambassador Swaniker, for this milestone of bringing HACSA to the United States. As was mentioned, my big passion is developing talent. And so over the last 15 years, I've been involved in setting up several institutions in Africa that select the top talent in Africa. We develop this talent and then we connect it to opportunity. So we started small about 20 years ago with something called the African Leadership Academy. And then we scaled it to African Leadership University. And then today we have something called ALX. Collectively, we have 35 campuses across Africa, where we are today training about 250,000 people across Africa. So we are the largest trainer of software engineers and data scientists in the whole world right now. Just for context, the US graduates 75,000 people a year with degrees in computer science. But that comes from 4,000 colleges and universities. This year, we as one institution will graduate 180,000 computer scientists and software engineers. And our goal is to build the largest pool of technology talents in the world. But we're doing it in a very unusual way. Before we train them how to use data science and software engineering and cybersecurity, we first train them in leadership for 6 months, and ethics and values. And we expose them to the problems of the world, like healthcare, education, climate change, infrastructure, and the creative industry. Because AI can be a very powerful tool for the world, but if it's infused with, if it doesn't have good ethics, it can be dangerous. And so we want to ensure that those who are going to build the future of technology are not only white men in Silicon Valley, but that we have diverse talent and we have women. So one of our big initiatives as well is really increasing the proportion of women in technology, because otherwise you'll have bias in AI and so forth. So today, in our programs, about 40% of the people who go through are women, which is about 3 times the global average. And our goal is to take that to about 60%. And so what are we doing with all this talent? Well, we're incubating a whole group of startups. Last year, we incubated about 400 tech startups. And this year, we incubated about 2,000 tech startups. And we've also created a company called Sand Technologies that is using this talent to build very sophisticated artificial intelligence for the world. So our AI systems, for example, manage the water supply for the entire city of London. We are predicting when a pipe is going to burst in the city. We are preventing pollutions from going to oceans and rivers in the city. 16 million homes in London depend on our AI systems working for you to get your water. We've even put sensors in the rivers in the UK that detect the health of the river. So before you drink, you can put in your home address and we can tell you that the water you're going to drink comes from this river, and here's the health of that river. We work with AT&T in the US to help them. They wanted to deploy a few $1 billion to lay fiber in continental USA. And we created the algorithms to map the 4 million homes where it was profitable to lay fiber. So I'm just sort of telling you about what African talent can do when it's given a chance. And ultimately, what I believe is that Africa's greatest export needs to be our talent. People say, oh, but what about brain drain? See, the brain drain is only a problem when you're producing talent at low scale. Ghana graduates about 600 doctors a year. 300 leave on graduation day to go to the UK. But if you're graduating 10,000 doctors, you don't mind if 1,000 leave. There'll be 9,000 left for us, right? So what we're doing in the African Leadership Group is we want to train 5 million people in the next decade. And I think as a continent, we need to train 100 million, right? In all kinds of programs. And then we can leverage this talent to solve the world's problems and also Africa's problems. Now, in doing this, one of the exports that we need most importantly is to export our culture. Right? We're here at the Heritage and Cultural Society of Africa. And unless we're able to export our culture, our development efforts will be stifled. Growing up, I used to watch Hollywood. I was fed on Hollywood. We watched movies, and TV series, soap operas. I thought America was the land of milk and honey. And so I was surprised when I landed here. And I landed in Newark Airport. I got out and I said, is this the America I've been watching in news? And of course, I realized that, the image that I had, so one of America's greatest exports is its culture. The whole world grows up, and the Americans always save the day, right? The heroes, right? There's a war, and then they always save the day. And we think America is great, and as a result, America, it has serious consequences. They have the lowest borrowing costs in the world. They can print money, and the world just keeps lending them more and more money, right? We print money, we get penalized. Our interest rates go up, our debt, they don't give us any more debt, right? Because they don't trust us. For the same credit rating, African countries pay much higher costs for their debt, for the same rating by agencies, just because of perception. There's so much that's affecting our ability to trade, ability to export, ability to attract investment because our story is misunderstood, even by Africans themselves. I recently took a delegation of my staff from SAND to India. I wanted them to see that the perception of India is much worse than is better than the reality. Because you think India is this developed country with technology and everything. When we went there, we were shocked. It's worse than Africa in many ways, the infrastructure. But the world is very happy building technology there. Why? Because they've done a very good job of selling a different story. While we were there, I played them a video. I said, where is this video? My African team. Qatar, Singapore. It was Addis Ababa. They didn't believe themselves as Africans that that developed city was theirs. So now, I talked to you about how we are really leveraging artificial intelligence to solve many problems in the world, including in Africa. There's a very exciting digital health project we're doing in Rwanda where we're using SpaceX satellite to connect rural clinics in Rwanda and using it to equip nurses and rural and community healthcare workers with artificial intelligence so that they could do more sophisticated diagnosis of patients. Because one of the big challenges we have in Africa is we don't have enough doctors. And the real power of all this is we built a health intelligence center for the Minister of Health so they can track real time what's going on in the health system. You can see how many babies were born yesterday, what is the disease burden by district. You can start to predict the early signs of a pandemic. It shifts the whole healthcare system from being reactive and expensive to more predictive and preventative. And we can use AI to solve our problems in health, in education, in agriculture, and so forth. But one of the big game-changing opportunities is in telling our stories. Before, if you wanted to produce a Hollywood film or Hollywood quality film, you would need hundreds of millions of dollars. And you need a lot of technology, and you need to build these big sets and everything like that. With AI, this has all changed. I want to play you a video. And this video that you're going to see is completely generated by artificial intelligence. Watch this. These are all clips from AI. Can you imagine the possibilities? It costs $23 a month to subscribe to that platform. So as we're building this talent pool in Africa, there are 4 tracks that we're focusing on. One is software engineering. The second is data science, which is how AI is built. The third is what we call creative tech, where we're going to train 1 million creatives in Africa. And from day one, they're going to know how to use AI for film production, for music production, for gaming, for animation, so that we can build a very powerful propaganda machine that will tell our story the way we want to tell it at the world's highest standards. And then with that story, it's actually much easier to distribute as well. Before, you would need, if you had a great script as a filmmaker in Africa, you had no way of getting that to Steven Spielberg or to some Hollywood mogul who would decide whether your film gets aired or not. You can now put it on YouTube. You can put it on TikTok. There's so many channels that are now democratized that allows you to distribute, and suddenly this thing can go viral. So we're here at the Heritage and Cultural Society of Africa. And what I wanted really to understand, what I understand is that we have never had a better opportunity to take control of how our culture and our heritage is understood globally. And now the power is in our hands, thanks to technology, thanks to AI. But I'll end by saying that in as much as we can use this tool to build our own, to tell our own stories and film and music and gaming, animation, all these things, and distribute and really, and this of course needs to include telling a different story of the diaspora, right? We need to be careful that we don't use the artificial intelligence that has been developed and trained on outdated images of Africa. So in as much as this technology exists that we can use to create new images of the world, remember that this is being trained on images, because AI is ultimately based on data. So we have to also cultivate and go back to the original historical pictures that maybe were taken like by James Barno, which is in black and white, and feed the machines. Because what you can do, you can say, you still obviously will have hybrid film production. You're going to have maybe people walking in the streets of Accra, but you can say, I want to show a scene of 1924 Accra. Show all the B-roll. It must be fed with actual pictures from that time so that it looks realistic. Otherwise, the AI will make up some vision of what it thought 1924 Accra looked like, and it will be like a village or like some sort of mud huts, right? Because that's what they think that Africa looks like. So we need to make sure that we are going back and looking at the entire archive of all the content that we have as a continent to feed the machine, so that when we now empower this next generation of creators to tell our story, it's built on fact and not a warped imagination that the world has of us. The power's in our hands now. Let's not waste it. Thank you.
What an incredible speech. I think it's something interesting that people often overlook when it comes to generative AI. They see it as something that just creates at random the future. But as Fred mentioned, thinking about that theme of Sankofa, of reclamation, even generative AI, how expensive and massive that venture is, it exclusively has to look back to be able to build something in the future. So the question now comes, again, how will we be able to reclaim and reflect and look back and build anew, right? My dad would always say, forward ever, backwards never. So, just something that comes to mind, right? So next up, we have the distinguished honor of hearing from His Royal Majesty, Noche ni Note. I will give him a quick bio, He has immense experience, so there's a lot to discuss, but I would try to keep it succinct if possible, right? His Royal Majesty Nochine Note Owu IV is the current customarily installed Osu Manche and president of the Osu Stool Council. For those that are not Ghanaian in the room, the stool in Ghanaian culture is the throne from a royal perspective. So much of our history, much of our story is tied to the stool. And I encourage you to do extensive research in the royalty of Ghana. Beautiful, beautiful history. Beautiful dresses, gowns, aesthetics, kente, as you see. You see the colors, incredible, right? Nochi attended the Aditron School and Galaxy International School, where he focused his studies on science-related subjects, but maintained an aptitude for the humanities and social sciences. He also pursued an undergraduate education at Colby Sawyer College in New London, New Hampshire, where he was a member of the Weston High Honor Society, the Alpha Chi Dean's List, and he was also the first ever Black class president for his college. That's incredible. In addition to being the first ever Black student government president at Colby Sawyer College. In addition to this, he was awarded the Barbara Johnson Stearns Leadership Award for his leadership excellence during his time at the university and extensive areas of impact. In addition to this, while he was doing all of this work, he was also very engaged in the youth UN headquarters efforts as well. So he stayed with a global perspective even during his time in the States. In addition to this, he also received his doctoral degree in law from the prestigious University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in North Carolina, USA. His joint paper on the Venezuelan debt crisis is published and cited, so I encourage you to look into that. Very interesting text and history. Nochi is a practicing lawyer by profession as well as a lecturer. He has worked at various global Fortune 100 companies, and his focus areas since installment have been on the subject areas of education, youth empowerment, and entrepreneurship. So as you heard previously, themes that very much so are encapsulated in today's summit. So we are excited to hear from him and the presentation that is to continue. Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. And let's rise. Let's all rise as he arrives to the stage.
Good morning. I still believe it's morning. Thank you very much, my dear aunt, for having me here and for all you wonderful people being here. I have been asked to talk about youth engagement in the diaspora story and in the pursuit of excellence. I think Mr. Fred Swaneker did an excellent job of highlighting most of the topics that I would normally like to talk about. But yet still, I'll do my best to spend 5 minutes not boring you, but expressing certain insights that we might have. A couple of months ago, I was in Malta attending a sustainability conference. And as part of that, a team from one of the international media agencies had an interview with me. And we were talking about climate change and sustainability. And they asked me, have you given up on this current generation? Because I told them I was focused on the next generation. And I told them, the question isn't that I've given up on this current generation, but it's the hope I have in the next generation. That's what I'm counting on. We threw out around the buzzword, the buzz phrase, that Africa has the youngest population so far, and we have the kinetic energy to move our continent and our country forward. But what does that actually mean? to have the youngest population in the world, full of young people, youthful energy to move the continent forward. It means two things to me. There's one path and there's a second path. And I'll walk along both paths, unlike Robert Frost in his poem, and see where it takes us. The first path includes everything Fred spoke about. A trained and prepared youth that are engaged in changing the fate of our continent. I was at Yale yesterday, and I was mentioning to them that if you look at the leaders of our continent, the leaders of our country, the leaders of the civil rights movement across the world, we're all young black people. Sometimes people forget how young MLK was. Sometimes people forget how young Kwame Nkrumah was. People forget how young Patrice Lumumba was. These were young people who were determined to change the fate of black people, both in the diaspora and on the continent. And they made efforts that led to where we are today. But before they all got there, they required training. Kwame Nkrumah spent a significant amount of time in the United States and in the United Kingdom. He was trained to be a leader. He was prepared to be a leader, to know the matters, the issues that were important to the continent. He was thinking of things beyond his time. What would Africa, what would Ghana look like in the 21st, the 20th century? Lumumba was the same way. They were looking at what lay before us. They were getting the tools they needed to meet the challenges of their day and the days ahead. I always tell people, I wonder what Ghana would be like if the Akosombo Dam was not built. They were prepared for the future. That path requires us to invest in young people at home and in the diaspora, and to encourage them to renew those historical links we have between ourselves. Because the truth is, if persons of African descent refuse or do not spend time engaging with each other, sharing our stories, and learning from each other, then the next 100 years will be much of the same, if not worse. We've always been users of technology. We've never led in advancement of it in recent years. We cannot allow the next revolution to pass us by, and that is AI. If we do not take control of it and be creators in this space, our stories will be written for us. There's an old African proverb that says, as long as the hunter is the one who tells the story, he will be glorified and the lion will be victimized. So unless we start telling our own story with the tools that have been made available to us thanks to technology, then we're in trouble. And this is not a hole I'd like to dig myself out of. I'd rather be prepared for what lies ahead. So when it comes to issues of climate change, issues of economic downturns and upturns, issues of education and growth, I strongly believe that the time is now for us to invest in the young people of Africa and its diaspora and prepare them for the journeys ahead. Anytime I sit amongst chiefs, especially paramount chiefs, I'm usually the youngest. So I'm usually surrounded by old men, and people come to me, they're like, why are you so young? They call you old man, but you're still young. But the truth is, I have to start thinking of what the 22nd and the 23rd century is going to look like for my people. I won't be here. Maybe children born now will not be there. But we have to start laying the foundations for what that's going to look like. And what better people to do it than the young people of the land? That's the first path. That's a nice path. It leads to a sustained growth and development. Then there's the second path. The path where there are millions of young Africans who are not trained in leadership or trained in any form of skill relevant to the 21st century. This path shows a lack of investment in education and an investment in our culture. What this path will lead to is the worst kind of poverty we can imagine. The first kind of poverty is the one that someone's poor and you can invest in them and you can come out of it. The worst kind is when they've lost hope. Because solving poverty is easy. Solving hopelessness, now that's difficult. And that's what's going to happen if we follow down the second path. The 21st century belongs to groups of people and individuals who are willing to invest in the tools and skills necessary to meet it and the centuries that is to come. It belongs to those who are willing to do the hard work to ensure that their children and their children's children do not become spectators, but active participants in global history. And history is happening right now. We are shaping world history right now. With every election, with every academic achievement and groundbreaking technology, history is being made right now. Where are the Africans? Where are the peoples of African descent in the creation and development of AI? Where are the people of African descent in the climate conversation? Where are the peoples of African descent in instituting new policies around education? We cannot allow ourselves to be spectators. My final words are this. If for the next 500 years we do nothing at all, let us raise leaders. Because leaders who have integrity, who have ethics, will always find a way to solve a problem. And they will solve the problems creatively and with a mind for the people. They will pull people together, they coalesce movements, and they'll bring change. There's a gentleman here who told me something a while ago. He said it's okay to have skills. It's okay to be articulate. But the thing that will bring people to you and lead to change is your integrity and your ethics. And that is what young persons in Africa need to be trained on. We need leaders who are willing to show those virtues of integrity and our ethics. Because in that scope, my faith in our continent will be renewed. And I know that for the next 1,000 years, there will be an Osumanche after me, and there will be an Osumanche after me who will lead the change we need. So I urge all of us to take the first path. It's better, it's nicer, it's more hard work. Let me not pretend or sugarcoat it. It's more hard work, but it's the kind of hard work we need. So the 22nd century will not see an Africa worse off than it is right now. The 22nd century will see an Africa that has reignited. The dreams of Lumumba and Nkrumah and the dreams of MLK and Malcolm will be realized. I leave you with peace and I leave you with the blessings of the ancestors. Thank you very much.
What an incredible speech. I was very moved by the word shared. I think of a line from one of my favorite musicals, Hamilton. I don't know if you've heard of it. History has its eyes on you. History has its eyes on you. When you think through the textbooks that you read, the stories that you hear of generations past, As His Royal Majesty mentioned, these were regular people. These were 20-year-olds, teenagers, 30, 40, 50, whatever age. These were regular people that lived real lives, that decided that I have to be a participant in this moment. So when you think back in history, how do you want to be remembered 100 years from now, 200 years from now? What will your part in that narrative be? When the generations pass, ask, Auntie, Grandma, Papa, where were you? Will you say, oh, I was to the side. I saw it on TV. I read it in a book. Or will you say, I showed up. I activated. I engaged. I empowered. I inspired. So just some of the ramblings that go through my mind when I hear incredible words such as that. But moving on, again, forwards ever, that will be, you'll hear that often during today's session. We would like to highlight a couple people that have had significant impact in their spaces, be that industry, society, or the community. And these are in the form of Lifetime Achievement Awards. So we have a couple honorees that we want to celebrate, and I will speak to their stories briefly, and then we will have a couple videos for those that could not be in attendance with us today. And then from there, we will transition to other sessions. So one of the first people that I would like to highlight for a Lifetime Achievement Award is Jessica Harris. Jessica Harris is a New York native, also born in New York. She is from Queens, New York. Queens get the money, you know, shout outs to them. And she is an educator and culinary historian. She graduated from Bryn Mawr College in 1968 with a degree in French and followed with a master's from Queens College, as well as a PhD from New York University. Harris has taught at Queens College and known for her expertise in African and Caribbean cuisine. And if you've ever had African or Caribbean cuisine, it is phenomenal. So if she has that level of expertise, that should tell you how good that food is. So shout outs to her for that. She has also authored numerous books, such as The Welcome Table and Iron Pots and Wooden Spoons, and has received several awards, including the Black Culinarians Heritage Award. And we'll hear throughout today's session the impact of different aspects of culture, including food, art, clothing, and everything in between, and how that tells the story of generations across the lines and years. So we are excited to welcome Jessica Harris. So let's give her a round of applause. Jessica could not be here today, so we will have a video from her. But before we get to the video, we have another honoree that we would like to highlight that also could not be in attendance, and that is Clark Peters. And Clark Peters was born in 1952, also in New York City. So shout outs again to a New York native. You see the themes here, right? And Clark is someone that grew up in New Jersey. So if you're a New Jersey native, then, you know, hey, you're welcome. We're excited to have you. He is an American actor, singer, writer, and director whose career spans over 4 decades. At the ripe age of 12, he had his first theater experience in a school production of My Fair Lady. He began to have serious ambitions to work in the theater at the age of 14, and in 1973 moved to London. And while in London, he formed a soul band, The Majestics. That's what I like to hear, come on. And worked as a backup singer on such hits as Love and Affection by Joan Armatrading, Boogie Nights by Heatwave, and some David Essex songs. He is known for his roles as Lester Freeman in the television series The Wire, one of the greatest TV shows in the world, one of my favorite shows, so just have to shout that out. And Albert Lambro in the television series Dream. He also wrote the book for the musical review Five Guys Named Mo in 1990, which received a Tony Award nomination for Best Book of a Musical. Peters is also known in his role in the films Silver Dream Racer, Endgame, John Wick, Three Billboards, Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and several more. His performance in The Iceman Cometh won him the Theatre World Award, and he's portrayed as the shady lawyer Billy Flynn in the revival of Chicago, the musical Chicago, in 2000 and 2003. So, as I mentioned, we have culinary arts, we have the theater, we have musicals, all of these different stories that tie us together, and we are excited to celebrate him as well. And we're now going to play the videos from the two of them to acknowledge their awards.
Dear HACSA, I'm happy to receive this wonderful award. I'm humbled by it as well as proud to receive it. Not the kind of pride that leads to a fall, I must add. Unfortunately, I can't be with you today because I'm on set at a new Netflix series called The Burrows. But I just want to say, take this moment, if I can, to talk to you about HACSA and how important it is to have an organization like this in the world today, in these turbulent political times in the world's history. You know, HACSA has the ability to bring us together by recognizing our fragmented past, you know, and how in working together, they might be able to point out a way for a more harmonious and productive future. So I'm glad to have received this award, and I'm reminded of the words of Mr. Duke Ellington when he was asked to write his autobiography. He was reluctant to do so and told everyone, well, I still have a lot more to do. I have to say that in receiving this award, the Lifetime Achievement, hopefully I'm only halfway through that life and there's a lot more to achieve. I want to thank you very much and have a good night. Bye.
Hi. Thank you, Ambassador, honored guests, friends. It is my great honor and pleasure to be the recipient of this year's Sankofa Lifetime Achievement Award. I could not be more honored. It is my sadness that I am unable to be with you tonight, but I thank you, I thank you, I thank you.
We are honored that they were able to join us virtually, such as the wonders of technology, right? Next up, we have another Lifetime Achievement Award recipient who is Chapman Roberts. Chapman Roberts is an incredible thespian that has been immersed in the Broadway space and musicals throughout much of his professional journey. Chapman debuted in the original Broadway cast of Hair, if you've ever seen that amazing, very interesting show. My fiance is a huge fan. I think Fumi, you're also a big fan of Hair as well, yeah. So yes, his subsequent stage appearances included feature roles on and off Broadway in Salvation, Hello Dolly, Jesus Christ Superstar, phenomenal name, and also in the Fantastics, yes, okay. He has recorded with legendary artists such as Gregory Hines, Horace Silver, Weather Report, and B.B. King, a musical legend of the US. So it's very exciting to hear that as well. His vocal arrangements have been critically acclaimed and can be heard on 8 original Broadway and West End cast albums, and has garnered over 25 Tony Award nominations. Let's welcome Chapman Roberts.
HACSA Lifetime Achievement Award, proudly presented to Chapman Roberts in recognition of your pioneering contributions to the performing arts, your trailblazing efforts to elevate Black artists on Broadway, and your steadfast dedication to preserving and celebrating African American musical heritage through performance, direction, and mentorship. Thank you.
Thank you. The year was 1873, and a group of young, formerly enslaved college students traveled to Great Britain to do a Royal Command performance for Queen Victoria. They were on a fundraising mission for Fisk University. At the end of the command performance, Queen Victoria presented them with a gift of 5,000 pounds. This was 1873. I'm told that's about $250,000. They then went on a tour of Europe for 7 years. Singing Negro spirituals and telling the story of their enslavement and their freedom from enslavement. Fisk University was rescued by that gift from Queen Victoria, and it was the first recorded repatriation. So, here we are, 151 years later, spreading the message with music. He mentioned Hamilton. He mentioned Hair. I was in the original cast of Hair in 1968. And we are still singing the same songs. We are still worried about the same things. We are still protesting about the same things. Well, I served as a musical director in the United States Army during the Vietnam era. And when I got out of the Army, I found myself on the stage protesting the draft card that I had to have to go into the United States Army. One day I got an offer to go into another show, but the producer said, you cannot leave the show until you find your replacement. I said, okay, that's a deal because I'm out of here. We were making $100 a week, and we went on strike and we got a raise of 75 cents a performance. So I held the audition, and a young man showed up to sing. And he said, they say into your early life romance came. And I said, wait a minute, stop. How old are you? He said, 17. I said, well, first of all, it's a beautiful Duke Ellington song, but it's the wrong song for Hair. And if you try to sing this rock and roll mess that we are forced to sing, it'll shred your voice. Why don't you go and graduate from high school and come back at another time? That young man was Clark Peters. And so 11 years later, after we did a show on Broadway called Bubbling Brown Sugar, which celebrated the work of Duke Ellington, Cab Calloway, Billie Holiday, Fats Waller, I was called to London to put together the London company of Bubbling Brown Sugar. And a young man comes walking down the aisle, and he said, "Hello." And I said, "I know this voice." And it was Clark Peters. Well, that was a wonderful occasion, but what made it more wonderful that the song they assigned him to in Bubbling Brown Sugar was "They Say." So I'm happy to be here because he was a young man. I was almost 30 years old. He was only 17. But he led me here. The young person brought me here. So I'm in the process of developing a choir out of London called the African Diaspora Festival Choir. And we are recruiting choirs and singers from the entire diaspora, which at the moment includes the London Community Gospel Choir, which includes Vox Cordis Cuban Choir of the Cuban Cathedral in Havana, which includes the New Jersey Symphony Gospel Choir, which includes the Count Basie concert choir in Red Bank, New Jersey. And I would like it very much if there are singers or musicians in the audience, or if you have a church or choir affiliation from wherever you come, that you join us. And I would also like it very much if we could all sing together in 2026. We have time to put it together. I hope I see you there.
Can I have a volunteer to help, please? Can somebody come up here?
This is for Clark.
I need to say something. I told you there'd be special people here. Now, wasn't that special?
What I love about hearing stories like that is something that, again, it was referenced in earlier pieces, but the notion of respecting our elders while also respecting our youth. When you hear a story of one of our elders learning, being led, being empowered by the youth, giving them the agency and the space to do that, and then the youth in kind, as we would traditionally see, being led by our elders, being inspired by our elders, being empowered to go the level that our elders did and just a step further, and then to give that same challenge to who becomes the youth that come after them, right? I think coming to activities like this is just so enriching to hear this kind of tied legacy that all of us have together. But again, I'm gonna start preaching, so I'm gonna stop doing that. We have another Lifetime Achievement Award honoree that we'd like to celebrate. And before I do that, I want to highlight some themes that we heard. We heard about UNC North Carolina the Carolinas. I don't know if people are familiar with the Gullah Geechee culture. The Gullah Geechee culture, a phenomenal history of people that retained so much of their story from Africa into the Americas and persisted that throughout the decades. Our next honoree is actually from the Carolinas. He is someone that is Gullah Geechee and has such an exciting story. So our next honoree is Alexander Smalls. Let's give him a round of applause. Okay.
HACSA Sankofa Lifetime Achievement Award, proudly presented to Alexander Smalls in recognition of your pioneering contributions to music and the culinary arts, your steadfast dedication to elevating African and African American cuisine on the global stage, and your remarkable achievements as a chef, restaurateur, author, and cultural ambassador, preserving and promoting the rich legacy of African and diasporan gastronomy. Alexander Smalls, we proudly present you this Lifetime Achievement Award.
All of this. I get two.
One is for Jessica.
And this is yours. There's more still.
There's more still.
Goodness. This is coming. Oh, cool. Does this come with a doctorate? Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for this honor. I have enjoyed my association with HACSA over these several years and my time with Ambassador Svanika, really helping me to expand my footprint into the African community. My career has been an unusual one. I started as an opera singer and sang opera for many years throughout Europe and America, but mostly Europe because of racism. Black men were not embraced on the operatic stages here in this country. So I spent a lot of time in Rome, in Paris, in London. A Grammy and a Tony later, I I hit the glass ceiling so hard, I still have a concussion. You know, it was devastating for the little boy within me to realize that they weren't going to make space for me to swing from the chandeliers at the Metropolitan Opera House. This dream of mine, since I was a little kid growing up in South Carolina, studying piano and voice and fencing and meditation, imagine coming home with all these extraordinary requests on my parents' budget, you know, middle-class family, you know, in a one-horse town, you know, and, you know, when I came in and said to my parents, I'm going to be an opera singer, I mean, they had nowhere to put it. They knew nobody who looked like us that did such a thing and had a career. But I think what was probably most shocking is that I had decided I was going to be an entertainer, and that was frightening for my mother. She clutched her pearls. But what they didn't do is say no. They never said no. They indulged it. I mean, you know, I exhausted the cookie jar, you know, the mattress money, you know, because I always came up with some other thing I had to do. And, you know, I was that little black kid that integrated everything. So I was the only black in this class, and in that society, in that course. And that's the story of my life. And so taking you back to when I got the concussion, hitting the glass ceiling, you know, I had a final audition at the Metropolitan Opera. It was my third. And after I sang, usually you sing an aria, and halfway through the second, they stop you and they tell you exactly what they're going to do with you. And I sang 2 arias, and I thought, this is getting interesting. Started the third. And then finally, someone said, oh, beautiful, it's great work in Europe. And I worked with a famous opera singer, Tito Gobbi, in Rome. And so they said, we're excited to welcome you into our chorus. And they offered me a chorus in the very opera I won a Grammy and Tony for. And so, you know, I'd smuggled a bottle of red wine from Paris. In those days, you could do those things, you throw them in the suitcase and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, as they tendered that offer to me, I said to myself, I froze. And then I heard someone say, it was me, I wouldn't be interested in that. And the room was pregnant. My agent from Columbia Management thought I had lost my mind. I left the stage. She comes running behind me with my jacket, and she said, what are you doing? This is the Met. This is the Met. You know, it's an entry level. You have to get in somehow, somewhere. And I said, you know, it's not about the entry level. I'd fly through the ceiling. I'd come in the side door, the back. That's not the point. I seem to be the only one in this room that realizes I've been insulted. And even my management doesn't realize I've been insulted. So I went home, that bottle of red wine we talked about. I lived in a brownstone. I had one of those fireplaces that still operated. You know, we're talking about, you know, somewhere in the 80s, sorry. And, you know, I drank that bottle. Yes, I did. All of it. All of it. All of it. It was in the corner when I woke up in the morning. But what I did do was I woke up with a plan, oddly enough. I decided I was going to open the first fine dining African-American restaurant in New York City. And therein lies the transition to food and culinary arts. 18 months later, I was building this restaurant. Now, mind you, I had no knowledge of business. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any money. And who was going to literally give money to an opera singer, you know, who had a concussion from the Metropolitan Opera House? And so, you know, I started this journey. And the one thing I did have is really good friends. One of them you may have worked with, sir, speaking of hair, Felicia Rashad. So Toni Morrison, Aunt Toni, wrote the first check. Felicia Rashad wrote the second check. The great Percy Sutton of Harlem fame, Apollo Theater, et cetera, wrote the third check. Friends came to the party. They understood that what I was doing was important and needed. And, you know, a couple of Wall Street guys who wanted to go for the ride, you know, they're always up for a ride. And they came in, and I opened Cafe Beulah, and it was the start of my culinary expression in New York City. And with that came 5 critically acclaimed restaurants in New York City. The last was the Cecil, and reopened Minton's Playhouse with my partner Dick Parsons of Time Warner, Citibank. And we essentially, in many ways, changed the landscape and were the foundations of sort of the modern African-American boutique restaurant. One of the reasons I was able to do what I did is because I owned. And it made all the difference in the world, because when I decided I was going to open a fine dining restaurant, people thought I'd lost my mind. How do you essentially translate soul food through the lens of fine dining? I had a deconstructed gumbo plate on my menu that went for $40 35 years ago. Can you imagine? A Black-owned restaurant. So, you know, this has been quite a journey, and essentially through my books, I've created advocacy. I consider myself, among all the things I consider myself, a culinary activist and someone who is really pushing the boundaries and making space for who we are as Black people, because I feel our culinary is our currency, it's our conversation, it's our legacy. It goes with our oral expression because, as you know, enslaved people were not allowed to read. And so we became masters of the oral history and storytelling, as my fellow honoree displayed so eloquently before I got up here with my concussion. But I want to say that in my work, and I'm very, very proud because 4 years ago in the pandemic, I was able to cross the Atlantic and open the first African dining hall in the world in Dubai, 22,000 square feet, 13 concepts, celebrating who we are as African people all over the world. And what essentially launched me in that direction, and I threw a party for HACSA also in Dubai. But what really launched all of that for me is that prior to that, when I opened the Cecil, which was voted the best new restaurant in America, Esquire magazine, the first time in its 50-year history that a Black restaurant had that title. And that food was about a concept I called Afro-Asian American cooking. It celebrated the footprint of enslaved people on 5 continents, how through slavery Africa changed the global culinary conversation. So all of that to say, I'm excited, and I think you'll be treated to this later. I have my new cookbook that debuts actually right now here today. It comes out on the 15th of October, but thanks to yours truly there, it is featured this morning. It is the celebration of the contemporary African kitchen. Essentially, I got myself an African village. This book is about Africa, North, South, East, West, Central, some of the most important leaders of the culinary expression of the continent. And the book is designed for home cooks. But it's also designed really to make familiar who we are through our culinary excellence. And with that said, I'm going to release this mic, but I just want you to essentially understand that, on all fronts, we are meeting the occasion. And my job is to meet that occasion through the culinary arts and experience. Thank you so much. So nice to be here with all of you. Give me my gift. And I want all my stuff. Thank you, love.
The one and only Alexander Smalls. So we have only 30 copies of his book, and he's here today to launch his book and to sign these copies for you and puts any message you want. So think of Christmas, all the people who you need to give Christmas presents to. Alexander is here to sign the book and put any message you want in your book for you. And so we'll have the book signing later on. I also want to plead with Alexander and with Chapman to take a picture with me outside during the coffee break. We are soon going to coffee break. And then we'll come back again for more exciting speakers. So I'm not gonna usurp my MC because he's doing a fabulous job.
Thank you. So my current job as MC, the hat will come off, and I will now be the logistics engineer of where you need to go. So the coffee break will be roughly for the next 10 to 15 minutes. We want to make sure that it is a break and brief so that we can be fully engaged in the discussions to follow. We will have 2 breakout rooms. One will be this space for one of the panels, as well as the Millbank room. And we will have volunteers that will be guiding you to each of those locations. I feel like I'm an airplane coordinator, right? But yes, so those will be the 2 sessions. So enjoy the coffee break and small pastries, and then we will get back to the word that we want to engage in. Thank you again.
Titles.
Yes, I will be announcing the panel titles as well. So the first panel will be on the subject of mental trauma and healing. That will be happening in this space, the Cowan Auditorium. And then on the other side of that, and many bankers would agree with this, opposite of mental healing is finance and investment. That'll be taking place in the Millbank Chapel. So enjoy your coffee and pastries, and then choose your your preferred experience. So I will choose healing. So yeah, thank you. I thank you again.
Up to you.
Let me look and see what I got.
We're all set.
Yeah, mics are here. There's some waters if you want it.
And then they will instruct you to put your email in there. You can log in through it. You want me to help you? Okay. Yeah, bring it.
I just want to. You're the moderator for this panel, right?
Yeah, I do have a handheld if that's
Perfect. This is just, it's for our recording purposes.
Oh,
It's kind of
gotcha.
new, so we figured we don't need it right now, but if I
Totally.
can test it on you by having it, if it's not a huge
just cut out
deal,
anything embarrassing.
no, actually, yeah, no, for sure. Is it, let's see if this is, that's the most comfortable thing here. Is that like,
That's
eh?
fine. That
Yeah?
doesn't bother me.
Okay, alrighty. Here, let's put it on, you're gonna be facing more that direction,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, let's put it on the back side then. Right there.
Thank you.
Awesome, yeah, that doesn't bug you?
Not at all.
Okay, cool, sweet, perfect.
Thank you. Hello. I'm Maritza. Nice to see you. Good to see you, Maritza. How are you doing? But as long as you've been on.
Hello, everybody. As we get ready to start, please try and fill out from the front so we can make this as intimate a conversation as possible, especially when it comes to asking questions to our esteemed panelists. So if I could trouble anyone who is so far back, please come as close as possible. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Should we get started or do we want to give folks a few minutes to make their way in? Do you want us to start? All right, we'll kick off. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and attending HACSA's panel on mental trauma and healing. My name is Gabriella Laurie. I lead corporate communications for Headway, which is a company that makes it easy for therapists to accept insurance so that patients can find affordable in-network care. And I'm so excited to moderate this robust discussion with a group of experts here. I don't want to waste any time, but just a couple words on the folks we have here on the panel in no particular order. I'm going to start with Dr. Angel Acosta, who's a leading voice in the field of healing-centered education. I have a whole bio here that's so long. He has so many accomplishments, but I will pass to him to kind of give some context on his expertise.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm a healing-centered educator. I got my doctorate in this institution, and this woman here helped me finish. She was on my doctoral committee, and our research was focused on what are the conditions that we need to put in place in our classrooms to ensure that our kids thrive. That was one of the fundamental questions, and I've been trying to answer that question ever since, as a consultant, as a strategic advisor for HACSA, and then corporations.
Awesome. Looking forward to diving into all of that. To his left, to your right, we have Dr. Yolanda Seeley Ruiz, who is a professor of English education at the Teachers College, here right where we are at Columbia University. And she is the 2024 New York University Steinhardt School, for the Steinhardt School of Culture, Education, and Human Development's Dorothy Height Distinguished Alumni Award winner. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Is it afternoon yet?
Almost.
Good morning / afternoon. I am grateful to be here, and I am grateful to be in the presence of all of you, and especially, he's my teacher. He showed up, I say this all the time, he showed up as my student in a class many years ago and has become my teacher in so many ways. And I'm grateful for you, Dr. Angel, for pulling me into the power of what is HACSA. And I'm just happy to be here with all of you.
Thank you for being here. And last but not least, right next to me, we have Maritza Guillaume-Emile. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Who's the founder of Barra Homes, a leading home renovation services company based in New Jersey. And Maritza has overcome incredible trials in her own life. We wanted to bring the real life perspective of healing. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I feel like I'm not qualified to be on this panel.
Yes, you are.
But thank you so much for inviting me and for Auntie to welcome me into this very amazing panel of speakers.
Of course. No, we appreciate you being here and your perspective. And I want to start to open the conversation by asking a relatively open-ended question, but you all have very specific points of view and differing expertise. We can start with Yolanda, but I just want to hear a few words on what healing means to you.
Thank you for the question, and can we say thank you to Gabrielle for moderating this panel. What is healing to me? Healing, first, it starts with the self, and that's much of the work that I do as I try to do my best to get people to uncover their racism, their bias, their sexism, their homophobia. It starts with the self. It's not new, meaning psychologists have been saying this for centuries. Certainly in the mindfulness field, they tell us to start with the self. But in education, believe it or not, specifically teacher education, we don't really talk about the self. And to be in front of other people's children, as Lisa Delpit would say, I believe the teacher has to be healed or as whole as possible. So for me, in the context of education, healing starts with the self. Healing also faces those very, very difficult moments, those moments that we want to push down, those moments that keep popping up and prevent us from being fully human and whole. My work is about doing the excavation and to do those excavations through stories. So for me, healing is being open to the stories of our lives, the moments that harm us so that we can learn to move forward. So healing is storytelling, and storytelling leads to healing. It's a cycle for me.
Yeah, from my vantage point, from my vantage point as a social scientist, not a psychologist, but more from an anthropological perspective, healing is the capacity to feel a sense of dynamic wholeness and groundedness in the face of catastrophe, transition, change, and tumult. So, how do we experience dynamic experiences in our lives and stay relatively intact to be able to make sense of what happened? And in our communities, from the Black diaspora, we've done it with art, we've done it with our music, we've done it with um, our culinary traditions. So from my vantage point is a dynamic process of actually wounded healing. So not that we can ever arrive at being healed, but that we can be in a wounded healing journey of committing always to staying in that process of finding more and more restoration, yet continuing to be assaulted by the reality of the suffering that comes with being alive.
That's so well said. Yeah, Maritza, I'd love to hear from you as someone who's been through a personal healing journey, what it means to you.
Healing for me is the ability to have empathy, the ability to understand that you're bleeding, but you could still see the suffrage of once where you were and help somebody through your testimonies and understanding from where they came from. Because you have um, careful when I speak, there's other voices. Theme music. But that's what healing is for me. Healing is having the ability to have empathy and understand that even though you may, I've survived now. I'm a 9/11 survivor. I've dealt with that. And then I married a pedophile. That's how I always introduce myself. I married a pedophile. How do you heal from that? And for me, first of all, I didn't even have the time to heal because I had to heal as a Black woman. All the other people impacted. It was my mother, who was actually cancer, was dealing with cancer. My amazing colleague at the time, Onisha Lee, she was one of the person at the firm that I worked with in Wall Street at the time. And then it took years for me to understand that I too needed healing. But my healing began the day I started helping others and showing them that there is a better journey. So that's what healing is for me. It doesn't end. Sometimes it's still you have that ability. It's a choice.
So well said. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that obviously this year's Sankofa Summit theme is inspiring youth, healing communities. I can't think of a better panel to discuss this topic. You all work with the youth in some capacity. So maybe, Angel, we can start with you, or let's key into what are some of the unique challenges facing today's youth?
Yeah, just a special shout out to Kari Lazari White from Brotherhood Sister Soul here, who works with an incredible organization that does precisely that. Actually, one of my initial research projects was looking at the Brotherhood Sister Soul and the ways in which they supported young people with navigating adolescence and thinking about their identities, taking them abroad, doing all kinds of really powerful things. But when it comes to young people, and it's connected to the definition of healing, is how do we help young people process individual, right, their individual trauma, their interpersonal trauma, the trauma that happens in between them and their friends, them and their families, but then more importantly, structural and institutional trauma, So the ways in which that the society that they are embedded in maims, hurts them. So I think Kari can speak to this and maybe during a question section, but the one thing that's powerful is when an organization can create the conditions where students feel so comfortable and confident to want to ask for support, engage in inner resourcing, that they're not obsessed with the traumatic activity and can deeply, deeply commit to a life of self-reflection, to a life of constantly striving. So the more we can create conditions, so right now, can we, with social media and technology, the distractions, the fragmented way in which students and young people find community, the more we can create organizations and classroom experiences that allow students to speak their truth, to feel comfortable sharing how they're confused about all the change happening in the world, that's the most powerful thing that we can do.
Yeah, Yolanda, I'm just estimating you've seen thousands of students come through your classroom. What do you think about this topic?
Yeah, and I'm still working with students at the high school level. I think about my own daughter and what she needs. She's now 19, but what I want to share is what Angel is sharing with us. The conditions that youth need is what is the antithesis of schools, for the most part, for Black and brown children and children of the African diaspora. And we see that violence in the curriculum. And in the curriculum, for the most part, the absence, right? So now, the beautiful thing is that New York now has Black African studies, AAPI, Asian American Studies, that's happening. But we also have to make sure that those who are teaching it have a fidelity, have an understanding, have a respect for the history and the culture so that they don't create more trauma with something that is intended to heal. And when I think about my own daughter and what young people need, absolutely, technology can be a force for greatness, but it can also be a force for damage. And unless we teach young people critical technology skills, critical media skills, they can look at images and think, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be. And some of those images are very negative. I think about my own daughter and really starting with her from a very young age as a young lady who's both Black and Latina. So she's Black Tina, and never feeling quite Black enough, never feeling quite Latina enough, but letting her know that she was good enough. And so young people have this, am I good enough? Am I cute enough? Am I this? So we need to have not just adults in their lives, but if it's, let's say it's not at home for various reasons, usually the society that creates conditions for family to suffer in, that's where teachers come in. That's the beautiful work. So teachers have to see themselves as healers. And when we talk about wounded healing, we all have wounds. How do we use that as power? Because we have the next generation in our hands. What are we doing with it? That's the work I seek to do, to make teachers understand you have to know your own wounds, heal your own wounds, not harm the children in front of you, and create the conditions for them to express their joy and the beauty and the art and the culture that is innately within them. And the arts are healing.
Beautiful. I mean, you brought it up yourself. Social media has impacted, younger generations so much. In fact, this year, the U.S. Surgeon General actually has called on Congress to require warning labels on social media and how it can harm, particularly children. I'm curious to hear from you all, folks who work with the youth on a regular basis. What are some of the alternatives maybe that you inspire them to get into in order to heal themselves or their communities rather than just falling back onto, social media?
If you don't mind me responding, because social media can be, like I said, it can be beautiful too. This is not, but they have to realize that they are creators, content creators, and not just consumers. And there's empowerment in that. And in fact, if you follow some young people on TikTok, that's where activism really happens. That's where gathering of folks really happen. If you follow young people, some of them have 1.2, 3 million followers, and they're talking about African history. They're talking about the power of African Americans. And so I don't want to say that it is all the devil. There's certainly great things, and also the way that we see the beauty and the brilliance of our young people when they create content. I also want them to read. I want them to read beyond what's online. I want them to read authors and books. I want them to know Toni Morrison. I want them to know the poetry of June Jordan. I want them to know the speeches of Martin Luther King and not just the I Have a Dream. I want young people to know that blueprint speech where he talks about understand the path for your life. So reading and becoming content creators. I want the people to get out of the way and let them do what they naturally do. That's what I want.
It's a confusing moment for young people because they have so much power, yet at the same time, there's the levels of depression are really high, especially among young kids of color. So for me, when I'm working with young people, I actually try to keep it really basic when it comes to just asking them questions about, tell me more about that. What's coming up for you? What are you consuming lately that's bringing you alive? Even if it's, Housewives of Potomac, but leveraging what's organically getting their attention and then having them think about and inquire about those things in a deeper way, and then slowly moving their attention towards the development of other faculties, other interests, other skills that would put them on a path to deepening their expertise, their insights, their know-how.
And Maritza, as someone who I know you work with youth groups in your community, is there something unique about the younger generation you've noticed when it comes to mental health, and how do you encourage them, through your own story?
I think children are more, they actually understand a lot more than we understand they understand. If you just listen to them, you would actually learn a lot more than you're willing to preach to them. So for me, now that I'm a business owner and I left Wall Street, the church is the place that I find a lot of youth. And so I'm the ma of the church, which basically means, I didn't know when I became that, but I became that. And where the things that they can't talk about to their parents, religious taboos that they sometimes are struggling with, their faith. I talk about, the opportunity that God is not your parents. He actually has a listening ears, much more than talking about it's okay to be, have faith. It's okay to have a biblical background, not to feel shameful for it. And then at the same time, giving them other paths for their careers, because not everybody is going to be college bound, So electrician makes $70 an hour. A mason bricklayer makes $90 an hour. Electrician makes the same, 120. So, and they didn't go to school with a college debt that you may have for a 4-year degree that you don't want. So giving kids, and now being a business owner and being a general contractor, working with federal contract, showing them you could be a business owner. You could transition things, giving them that ability to know there are choices. And I still say get an education, because I said an unlicensed electrician is not an electrician. So again, just reinforcing the things that my mother was a teacher. She actually went here. She used to teach here. And so she's, I took over some of her mentees, which is interesting, help them to become, build their generational wealth by buying properties, teaching them how to do that, doing affordable housing. So that's how I do it. I want to impact people, especially the youth, to start thinking about, hey, it's not just your 401k. You got to build your nesting eggs, or 6%, whatever that is. I don't even know what it is now. I've been out the game for about 10 years. But there are other means for you to grow a portfolio and to retire at 40 instead of 60. There are other things you could do. So that's how my story, and that's what I share with them. And being in a church community and sit on the board, I actually get to say a lot of things to people about the way they want to treat the youth. So that's how I impact it with policies in the church.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for modeling, different paths and opportunities and possibilities for, the youth in your lives. To shift gears a little bit, I know Angel and Yolanda, you work together a lot on things, this type of topic. I'm just curious to hear about what partnerships or collaborations, and that could be across education, technology, government, private sector, can help drive forward this conversation of trauma and healing. I know that's a bit open-ended, but I'll just let you take
Yeah,
it.
I just want to make sure we talk about how I'm going to retire at 40.
Yeah, amen.
That's profoundly healing to me.
Where are the bankers? They need to be here.
So, in terms of partnerships, and so I think for me, as many cross-sector partnerships as possible. I spent 8 years going into public schools in predominantly what were considered at-risk neighborhoods. And when you go there, really, where these kids were at promise. And so the partnership that we developed was a community-based organization would install itself in the school, and I was one of the program directors, and I would come and interface with students. And one of the most powerful things I saw was that we would bring people from different careers, from accounting, from technology, from nonprofits. We would expose them to a variety of different careers. We would take them to colleges. We would take them on site visits to jobs. We would do online work as well. So, um, these schools that are and the communities are considered at risk, they need to have what upper class and rich people have when it comes to, it's called enrichment. And the research is called enrichment. Um, that's the extracurricular activities, the really amazing tutoring that gets offered in some of these affluent institutions. So the more that we can create partnerships that give students enrichment, that in fact I am the reason why I'm right here is because of an organization that was in my school providing enrichment services. You would have asked me what I wanted to do in my future, like sophomore year, I would have probably told you, real talk, a taxi driver, because that was what my brother was. That was what my father did for a little bit. There was no example. We came from Dominican Republic in the 80s. I was the first to come up. So there was no shame in that too. It was like, oh, I guess I'll do that. No shame. Proud taxi driver, proud chef. My mom was a chef. But through enrichment practices and activities, I got a chance to go to a college. I got a chance to go to a couple offices, and I was like, wow, there's a world out there that I could meet.
Wow. I'm also connecting with so much that you said, Angel and Sister. I was in corporate America for 13 years. And the one thing that I've learned about partnerships, particularly at the corporate level, if we're going to have them in the lives of youth, we have to be careful that they don't take advantage, right? Because a lot of corporations, they seek to check not just the diversity box, but also that youth box, that they want to have the facade of investing in the next generation. And oftentimes it is only in a way that makes them look good, right? So most of the partnerships that I work with have to do in the literary world with a children's conference called Quele Conference that's here. That happens, it's been happening for 15 years. It started happening here at TC. And my relationship with several programs in the New York City Department of Education. I've been working for the last 9 years with New York City Men Teach, helping to create more diversity in the teaching world, specifically in New York. I've been working with My Brother's Keeper. I am beginning to work and have worked with My Sister's Keeper. And a lot of those young people, while I offer professional development to the mentors and the teachers,